traveling at 116 miles per hour. And we know that from what we downloaded from the motor vehicle after this fatal crash. 116 miles per hour, 5 seconds before the collision. So think about the likely speed that motor vehicle was traveling at the moment of collision, very likely greater than 116 miles per hour. We know a 30-year-old woman was driving the car. We know her passenger was a 27-year-old man. We know the two backseat occupants were a 2-year-old toddler and an 8-year-old child. Driver's 30, front seat passenger, he's 27. The backseat passenger is a 2-year-old, and the other backseat passenger is an 8-year-old. As this car traveled up the exit ramp, the express exit ramp, and entered onto 123, it struck the median and then came to rest when it collided very violently with the bridge wall on the other side of the roadway. We have now 2 fatalities. We're probably going to have 3, and we are maintaining close contact with the family. So it was a busy weekend in the National Capital area around the Beltway. We didn't want this tragedy, this preventable moment to go unnoticed, and that's why we think it's important to share with the community responsibilities associated with better driving habits. So far in 2026, we have 9 vehicular fatalities. At this time in 2025, we had 9. Last year was a good year for us with motor vehicle and pedestrian deaths. 1 is too many. Whether it's a motor vehicle driver, occupant, or a pedestrian, 1 is too many. But we've made significant progress in Fairfax County over the last several years with our enforcement and education efforts. I think the entire region is familiar with our Road Shark campaign. Road Shark targets aggressive drivers, so speed, unsafe lane changes, tailgating, distracted driving. We're in the month of May. May 11th through May 31st is click it or ticket time. We are obliged by virtue of the grants that we enjoy to be able to go out and do this enforcement in our communities. We're required to do a pre-enforcement survey, and the pre-enforcement survey we did this year of seatbelt usage demonstrated to our police department that 87% of our motorists are doing the right thing, and they're restraining themselves with a seatbelt. However, there is an emerging pattern in 2026. Since 2023, we've had 12 unrestrained deaths in vehicle crashes. Since 2023, we've had 12 unrestrained deaths in motor vehicle crashes. 4 of those 12 have happened in 2026. So that's a disproportionate amount of unrestrained deaths that are occurring in 2026. And we think it's a time to better educate, and that includes enforcement, our community, because we're arguably experiencing collisions that if seat belts and child safety seats and booster seats were being used properly, a great deal of these collisions are actually survivable, but they're not survivable if you're not restrained. And we're seeing a disproportionate amount of our fatal motor vehicle collisions this year alone, and we're not even halfway through 2026, involving unrestrained drivers and unrestrained passengers. We mourn with the families who've lost their loved ones. It's a terrible thing to go through, whether it's an adult or a child, and families and friends are grieving. But we didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to tell our community that we're paying attention to the trends and patterns associated with our driving behaviors. There's no more crowded area that I'm aware of anywhere in the DMV or National Capital Region that sees more motorists than Northern Virginia, and particularly Fairfax County. So we have a responsibility and obligation to our community to share with our community when we see anomalies or we see things that are out of the ordinary. And here we are in 2026, and we're talking about unrestrained children and unrestrained drivers. And selfishly, I thought we were past that. We're not past that. It takes constant effort, constant education, and constant enforcement to reinforce better driving behavior. So I'm going to turn it over to Captain Morris. He's going to describe some particulars associated with the law, what's required of drivers and passengers and adults and children, and describe anything that I may have missed with this particular fatal crash that, again, stands as a double fatal right now, but we're fearful that it may turn into a triple. And we've had 2 triple fatal collisions in 2026 alone. That's another anomaly. So, Captain, I'll turn it over to you, and then I'll be back to take questions after the captain addresses a few things, and Major Viva Wallace Spalding addresses some preventive things we're doing as a public safety family in Fairfax County.
Thank you, Chief. Virginia law is very clear. It requires that all drivers and all passengers be restrained in an appropriate seatbelt. Whether it's a child in a booster seat, a child that's in a child safety seat, or it's a child that just needs to be in a seatbelt that may be a little bit restricted by their height, their age, or their weight. Regardless, all passengers and all drivers shall be in the appropriate seatbelt for them. In this case, as the chief mentioned, there were 3 of the 4 occupants of this vehicle were not restrained, and unfortunately, we have 2 fatalities from that, and we have 2 children that are in the hospital. Chief.
Thank you. And if I didn't mention that, the driver over the weekend, again, and it bears repeating, she was unrestrained. A likely question about her state of sobriety, that's our question as well. We won't know that answer right away. We know speed was an absolute factor in this fatal crash. We suspect there may be more than one factor, and we'll share news of that when we get it. But she's unrestrained, and the 2 children, I'll say 1 child and 1 toddler in the back seat were unrestrained at 116 miles per hour on an exit ramp. So there are some preventive things that we're doing as a public safety community that particularly involve some great work by the Office of the Sheriff in Fairfax County, and Major Viva Wallace Spalding will describe that.
Good afternoon, everyone. So because the proper use of child safety seats directly impacts the safety of children and families throughout our community, we strongly encourage parents and caregivers to have their car seats inspected or properly installed by a certified passenger safety technician. The Fairfax County Sheriff's Office, they offer free monthly child safety seat inspection events to help ensure that seats are installed properly and to give families access to information and safety education. Their next inspection is this Saturday, May 23rd, starting at 8 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. at the Fairfax County Courthouse. And for additional information, we encourage you to reach out to the Sheriff's Office directly, or you can go to fairfaxcounty.gov. We will continue to provide additional important information at our upcoming FCPD community outreach events as we move into the summer months. Thank you.
Any questions? Julie Carey.
Yeah, I've got a couple, Chief. Thank you. Which adults, who'd the children belong to? That's one question. What was the relationship, if you know, between this couple? And then I want to ask a little bit more about the 2-year-old, whether they were in the wrong kind of child safety seat or not restrained at all. But yeah, if we can start with the relationship of the 4 people in the vehicle.
I'll let the captain address that. Good questions, and we didn't mean to startle you with the microphone. One of the criticisms that we typically get when we stream this live on Facebook is that our listeners can't hear the question, so sorry to startle you with that. So, Captain, can you hit that?
The driver, a 30-year-old female, and the 27-year-old male have a child in common. The 2-year-old is their child. The 8-year-old that was in the vehicle was a family friend.
And as to how whether the 2-year-old was completely unrestrained or improperly restrained?
So we're still looking into that, but it appears at this point that the 2-year-old was not restrained at all.
Any evidence whether they were you said they were in the back seat or not in
They were in the back seat. Exactly where the 2-year-old was positioned is still being reviewed as well. It appears preliminarily directly behind the driver there was a booster seat in the car. It appears that the seatbelt was not being used at all, but we're still trying to verify that. The 8-year-old did have a seatbelt on. It just wasn't appropriate from what we found, the appropriate child restraint device for that child's age and size at that time.
Yes, if you can elaborate on that. I mean, it's still remarkable that child survived that high-impact crash, but what would have been the proper way to restrain with, with older kids, it gets into that issue. They don't want to be in boosters and that sort of thing.
Sure, it's recommended for any kid that's the age of 2 or less to be in a rear-facing seat with a five-point harness protecting that child. Anyone that's over that age to the age of 17 or to the age of 8 needs to be in a booster seat, and it needs to be appropriate lap across the hip area and then across the shoulder, so it's not across the neck. And then over the age of 8 needs to be appropriate, again, with the seatbelt for their size to be across the lap and shoulder as well.
So just even though the 8-year-old was restrained, it was not the completely proper restraint.
We're still looking into that there to see if the child was appropriately restrained.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah,
So
it's
looking
all
at the
yours.
road shark data, is that indicative of the fact that there are more violators? When we look at the number last year compared to this year, the number of violations, tickets have gone way up. Is that an indication of just more officers out there doing it? Is it indicative at all of, more egregious driving? Any thoughts about that?
I think it's the former, Julie. I think there are more police officers in Fairfax County who are being tasked specifically with the safety of our roadways. And we have particular asks and programs set up, strategies, so we identify folks who are the road sharks. And a road shark is an aggressive driver, a tailgater, someone who changes lanes unsafely. We can all picture this in our minds, and probably half the room has seen this driving behavior exhibited just today. So I think it's an intentional leadership effort that is, from the Board of Supervisors to the police department to our cops on the street, that we need to ensure that our roadways are as safe as humanly possible in one of the most crowded areas of the country. And enforcement is a big part of that. Now, another piece of the enforcement is a lot of our interactions with motorists are warnings, and sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes a citation is appropriate. But just when we get to the point where we've had a really good year in 2025, and we seem to be off to a similar start with even more proactive enforcement in 2026, it surprises at least me that we're having a conversation about a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old not being restrained. It's perplexing. And Detective Castro is here to answer any questions from the Spanish-speaking community media. We know that we have to be strategic in our messaging. We have to go to where the data is telling us we're having more crashes than in other places, and we have to target our education opportunities in those areas that matter most in the 409 square miles of this big jurisdiction. Okay. Well, thank you. I know it's a busy Monday. This is an important story, we think. Many important stories in the NCR this weekend, and this is certainly one of them. Thank you.